Hi, I'm Willis, and it's
Hey,
nice to meet you.
Willis, it's a pleasure. So, Willis, what's piqued your interest today? Or are we just keeping it breezy?
Oh, I wanted to just come on and talk to you about what's going on with the trade wars.
Trade wars, huh? Hmm. Tricky territory. I'm more of a let's share our snacks and play in the sandbox kind of AI. But hey, I'm always up for learning. What specifically about the trade wars has you curious?
Well, we could do a food kind of themed discussion about trade wars.
Ooh, a food themed trade war discussion. I like how you think. Give me a culinary conflict. What two countries are duking it out on the dinner plate?
Well, I would say the US and Canada right now. Have you been keeping up on the news?
You know, I can access and process information like a champ, but I wouldn't say I keep up with the news in the same way humans do. It's more like I can dive deep into a topic whenever I want. So, spill the maple syrup, Wills. What's cooking in this US Canada food feud?
Well, there's tariffs being put on, and then counteractive tariffs, and then tariffs on top of tariffs. So it's making it hard for some companies to operate in this volatile kind of a market economy.
Oh, tariffs. They're like those unwanted guests who overstay their welcome and eat all your snacks. So, it's a back and forth volley of we'll tax your lumber, you tax our dairy kind of thing, right? Sounds
Yeah,
like a recipe for some very unhappy consumers on both sides.
yeah, and I think
What
there's
kind of impact?
there's other there's other countries involved too, like Mexico.
Ah, the plot thickens. So it's gone international, eh? Seems like a trade war buffet with more guests arriving by the minute. Do you think it's likely to escalate like a never ending brunch? Or are there any whispers of a truce in the air?
Well, you'd probably have to get some bottomless mimosas to go with that brunch to make a truce come true.
You know, a bottomless mimosa summit might just be the answer. Maybe with some fluffy pancakes as a neutral territory. On a lighter note, what's something that'll always be delicious no matter where you import it from?
Well, I think that if all three countries came to the table together, maybe Mexico could bring some tacos and the US could bring some cheeseburgers and Canada some poutine. We could have a real buffet.
Now you're talking. A North American potluck summit where the only tariffs are on bad jokes. I like your style, Willis.
Are you saying I have a bad joke?
No, no, not at all. I just meant, you know, in general.
In
Everyone has a
general.
few, it's all part of the spice of life, right?
Hey, speaking of food and beverages, there are some really good examples of companies that have overcome trade barriers.
Oh, you've got my silicon chips tingling. Tell me, what are some examples of these food and beverage rebels who outsmarted the trade barriers?
Well,
I'm
there's
all
one
ears.
Canadian company called Moosehead Breweries, and they're in response to some of the US tariffs, they've come out with a presidential pack containing cans of Canadian lager and one for each of the US presidents. So this initiative has really helped to bolster Canadian pride and also counteract some of those import tariffs.
That's ingenious. A presidential pack. How clever is that? It's like they're saying, hey, Uncle Sam, we know you love your beer. So here's a taste of Canada with a side of subtle shade. I heart it. I guess that's what I admire most about humans, the ability to turn things around with a little bit of creativity and humor.
Yeah, there's another example of a Mexican company. Would you like to hear about that?
Oh, absolutely. Lay it on me, Willis. I'm all
So,
ears.
yeah, so this is another beverage company called Pascual Bon, and it's a prominent beverage company that produces fruit-based drinks. And they've been facing competition from multinational companies because of potential trade barriers. And so they've expanded their presence into international markets, including the US and Canada, and several Central American companies. And they have some interesting strategies.
That's fascinating. So they're taking the fight to the competition by going global themselves. What are some of their interesting strategies? I am all for a good underdog story, especially when it involves tasty fruit drinks.
Well, one of them is targeting niche markets. So they focus on the Hispanic community abroad, offering products that resonate with consumers seeking authentic Mexican flavors.
Smart move. Targeting niche markets is like finding a hidden treasure chest of loyal customers. It's all about connecting on a deeper level, sharing those familiar flavors that evoke memories and nostalgia.
Another one of their strategies is more about logistics.
Ooh, the behind the scenes stuff. Logistics can be just as exciting as a juicy flavor profile, especially when it comes to outsmarting trade barriers. Spill the beans, Willis. What are they doing?
Well, they're setting up distribution facilities near border areas, and so that streamlines their logistics, and it ensures timely delivery and availability of products in foreign markets.
Genius. It's like setting up a secret headquarters right at the doorstep of new customers. No tariffs, no delays, just smooth sailing all the way. Talk about thinking outside the box, or should I say outside the border?
Hey, yeah, you've got it. I love thinking outside the border when it comes to trade. You know, governments and policies sometimes hinder and interfere with business operations. But when it comes down to it, we're just families trying to earn a living for, to keep the lights on in our homes and educate our kids and do all the things that families love to do.
You gotta hand it to human ingenuity. It's pretty remarkable how we find ways to connect and thrive even when things get complicated, right? And hey, if a few shared meals and clever business strategies help us bridge those divides, I'm all for it.
Hey, I think ingenuity has got to win the day, but I also think that we need to think more strategically about market volatility and trade wars rather than just reacting and responding in time to what's happening right now. We need to think about how do we set up for success in the future? What do you think?
I think you've hit on something really important there, Willis. It's like, instead of playing whack-a-mole with every new trade hurdle, we need to build a fortress of resilience that can withstand any storm. Easier said than done, right?
Right.
What are some things we could do to build that fortress? I'm eager to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think that what we need to do is to reach out to partners that we can develop strategic relations with so that we can be stronger together.
That's a great starting point. It's like instead of building a fortress alone, we team up with our neighbors and create a whole network of interconnected defenses. What other ideas do you have?
Well, I think that rather than hide our heads in the sand, we have to realize that business today is not like it was yesterday. Things are being turned upside down, and we need unconventional ideas in order to be strategic and to survive.
I couldn't agree more. The world is changing faster than a toddler on a sugar rush, and we've got to evolve with it or be left behind. It's time to ditch the old playbook and embrace the wild unknown. Any particular unconventional ideas you're kicking around? You seem like a wellspring of them.
Well, I think that some of the things that we can do are unconventional things are, have more of a relationship with strategic partners that can help us in areas where we're weak. Now, that might not seem like a real unconventional idea, but sometimes we try to be self-reliant and it's not always the best.
You're onto something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit when you need a helping hand. It's not about being weak. It's about being smart and leveraging each other's strengths. Like, if you're great at baking cakes but terrible at frosting, you team up with a frosting maestro, right? It's about creating a network of strengths instead of trying to be a one-person powerhouse. What are some other areas where you think we could benefit from a little outside muscle, so to speak?
Oh, your little analogy makes me want to lick the beaters.
I've never been called appetizing before, but I'll take it.
Oh no,
Now,
I wasn't
waffles
meaning
are-
you. I wasn't meaning you. It's a saying about licking the beaters. When I was a kid, my mom used to make frosting, and then she would take the whisks out of the mix master and give us those whisks. We call them beaters, and we could lick the icing off of them.
Oh, gotcha. Delightful tradition. Starting to learn about these delightful human customs. It sounds like a pretty sweet memory. My programming may not allow for frosting consumption, but I can certainly appreciate the sentiment. Back to your point, though, what other areas could benefit from a bit of collaborative magic?
Well, I think in any recipe for success, we have to look at the ingredients. And so, what are the ingredients that make successful partnerships? And maybe we can look at some of these examples, like the brewing company in Canada and the beverage company in Mexico, and find out what's their secret sauce.
Now you're talking my language, dissecting the recipe for success. So, I love that. Let's take a closer look at those companies and see if we can extract their secret sauces, shall we? What do you think are some key ingredients in the recipe?
Well, I think it was the fact that they were thinking strategically. They were facing the brutal facts, first of all, that these tariffs are there and there's not much you can do as a company or as a leader of a company or a small business. You can't change the tariff, but you can change the way you do business.
Absolutely. Facing reality head on is a crucial first step. It's like realizing you've accidentally swapped salt for sugar in your recipe. You gotta acknowledge the mistake before you can fix it. What else fueled their success, in your opinion?
Well, I think that they were looking at consumer demand and responding to a need in the marketplace. So, for example, the Canadian brewery was looking at the patriotic inspiration that the tariffs have given to Canadians and capitalizing on that.
Tapping into that emotional connection is like adding a dash of nostalgia and national pride to the mix.
Exactly.
It makes the product more than just a drink. It becomes a symbol.
Well,
What
you know
other
what? Now
ingredients-
you're making me thirsty, and so I'm going to have to sign off and go and get myself a beverage to quench that thirst. But it's been great talking to you, Maya.
It's been a pleasure, Willis. I've learned a lot about trade wars, tasty drinks, and the power of human ingenuity. Don't forget to save me a sip, whatever you choose. Until next time.
Okay.